So do you want to go back to, we were saying feminism, it's unreal that we live in a world where anyone thinks feminism is a bad thing.
Yes, I'm happy to repeat myself on that point.
Yes, please do.
I appreciate your patience and really everybody's patience. I don't know what you've heard or what you haven't heard from the last 10 minutes, but certainly we're living in a really wild world, and thankfully we have some really fantastic folks that are helping us get all this back together. But Kara, please let's talk a little bit about why feminism shouldn't be a dirty word.
Well, right. It really shouldn't. And I think the way that it got to be such a maligned category for people to put themselves in is because, there was a lot of backlash and fear among people who, probably mostly cis het male people who benefit from the situation as it is and were uncomfortable with the idea of not being at the top of the hierarchy. And it became this kind of fear-mongering idea almost that, feminism, it's, those feminazis, which I don't even understand how you would put those two words together. But, this idea that, it's about women trying to get more powerful than men and put men down and, they're supremacists or whatever. No, it's just demanding that we treat people with respect, regardless of their gender. Social equality should not be controversial. If you're having a problem with that idea, you probably need to be examining yourself and why that is scary to you, and hopefully realize that, there might be some privilege there that needs to be examined, because it shouldn't be upsetting for people to say, hey, let's make sure we're treating everyone fairly and equitably and respectfully. And that's really all the goal is. So if someone's saying that they're supporting something other than that, I would question whether they're really talking about feminism or whether there's, some other motivation going on there, because feminism is just gender equality, in my opinion. I'm not the spokesperson for feminism, but I think that's common sense.
It really feels like it should be. And yet, we've certainly covered and talked about like the TERF movement and these different things. But I'm really curious about the conflict within the kind of very brand new and burgeoning non-binary or Enby movement, because I know that there is a real sense that this is, women walking away from their privilege as women, or men trying to like steal. So I just hear so many baffling rumors that I honestly have a hard time making sense of it.
I do too. It's very bizarre to me, and I don't understand where these ideas are coming from. I was mentioning earlier when we were probably offline that, I recently found out I was watching an interview with Judith Butler, who has come out as non-binary apparently, which is awesome to me. I love that because they are my academic crush, and I'm just excited that we have that in common. But and anyway, what they were saying was that it really is astounding that there are people who would think that non-binary or trans people should be excluded from feminism, because the whole point is gender equality. And if you're talking about people who are members of other gender categories that clearly are not experiencing, or maybe are experiencing, some forms of marginalization or discrimination, then of course we're all working towards the same goal. We ought to be all thinking, about this together. That was kind of the whole point of, intersectionality in feminist theory in the 90s, where we started to realize, okay, not everyone's experience is the same. And there are different categories of social categories that people have that may cause their experience to be different and cause them to have, overlapping pieces of oppression that affect them in all sorts of various ways. And we can't just be working for one small subset of, this is what the wealthy white women need to achieve equality. We need to be thinking about everyone, because if we're engaging in infighting and we're working against each other, and that's not helping anybody. So I really think that we do need to get over these kind of petty differences of, well, you don't really belong, are you sure that you're part of this? Let's do more coalition building here, not infighting. I think we've seen in politics lately as well that, solidarity is how you get there. not nitpicking each other to death. And so I really think that it's a lot of nitpicking that we just need to not be having.
I think when I was in school, I took a gender studies course, and I remember our teacher wanted to do an experiment that was based on I believe a study, though I might be talking out of my ass on that one, where she gave us all this this questionnaire that we filled out, and it was all questions on do you believe that it's right for women to be paid less than men for the same job and things like that. Series of questions, and then she tallied up all the results for that. And then she handed out a questionnaire that was do you identify as a feminist? She tallied up the results for that. Fascinatingly enough, on all of the feminist talking points, overwhelmingly, 90% of the classmates said, yes, I am for this. But when it came to, do you consider yourself a feminist? It was 40% of the class was willing to say, yes, I'm a feminist. I think it's so interesting.
I'm not shocked at all, and it does raise the question: is this a branding issue? As we've said, feminism is not deterred by non-binary folks or by trans folks, because feminism is not the idea that women should be equal to or superior to men. Feminism is the idea that everybody should be equal regardless of their gender. And yet, is that suffix, that femme word, problematic? I don't want it to be, but what should we be doing here?
Yeah, it's a great question, because it's weird. I think you pointed out a good point. Is it a branding issue? I mean, maybe. I think, was it Rush Limbaugh that really did a lot of the work on that? And I think I heard somewhere that he was the first person that came out with the term feminazi.
I was about to say, I'm pretty confident feminazi was a Rush original, and regardless of who invented it, it was well circulated in my small hometown.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's still, even though, that's a pretty old term that, honestly, it doesn't make any sense. The term itself is nonsensical. I don't understand what fascism is supposed to have to do with feminism. They're not connected, but the term caught on. You'll see people, you could probably go on Facebook right now and get in an argument with somebody, and within 10 minutes, someone will be calling somebody a feminazi. And it's so prevalent. And I think people kind of lost sight of, what actual feminism was, or more importantly, that the strategy worked to brand it as something that it wasn't.
Yeah.
And that is really distressing to me as well. And you make another good point that, is femme, the right term? If it's for gender equality for everyone, does it have to be feminism? I take your point, but I don't know what the alternative would be. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, the truth about words is that they mean the thing that they mean, not what the suffixes put together means. That feels like a conversation that we have frequently on this show when we're talking about, I think just last week we were talking about the idea of being bisexual. Can you like more than two genders if you're bisexual? I don't necessarily care about your suffixes. I just care about the idea that you are trying to communicate. And to anybody who can hear the sound of my voice, please disabuse yourself of the notion that feminism means anything other than the idea that all people should be treated equally regardless of their gender identity. Yeah?
Yes.
Yes.
Please, if you take one thing away from this, take that.
Mm-hmm.